Wind pressed against the old house like a long, low breath. The hallway light flickered. A church bell rang from the woods, 3 slow chimes. I looked into the mirror by the stairs and saw a street that wasn't there. Broken signs, drowned houses, gray water lapping at porches. A woman in a soaked dress lifted her head. Her mouth opened. "Eli." She said my name. The glass went white, and something knocked from the other side. 2 days earlier, Dad parked our dusty minivan on the shoulder of County Route 28 near Hollow Bend, New York. The Catskills rose dark and soft along the horizon. A wooden sign leaned at an angle, "Welcome to Hollow Bend. Pop 1902. Someone had painted a red X over the number. "Just for the week," Dad said, stretching his back. "We clean up the house, we take photos for the listing, we head home." I stared past him at the house. It sat alone near a stand of maples. White paint turned the color of old snow. The porch sagged. The front door was a faded green like sea glass. "It smells like a wet basement out here," my sister Nora said, wrinkling her nose. "That's the lake," Dad told her. "There used to be a village down in that valley. They flooded it to make water for New York City a long time ago." "What was it called?" I asked. "Northfield Village," Dad said. "People call it the Forgotten Village now. Some say you can hear a bell ring at night when the water drops. Old myths." He smiled, but it looked tight around the eyes. "Come on. Let's unlock this place." Inside, the air felt cool and damp. Dust spun in the light like tiny ghosts. The floor let out long creaks with every step. The smell was strong, damp wood and something like old metal. A blown-out candle smell draped the rooms as if someone had just pinched a flame. "Hello," Nora called softly, even though she knew no one was here. "Don't," I whispered. We walked room to room. In the living room, a big mirror hung by the stairs. Its carved frame was dark and scratched like it had been pulled out of a river. My face looked too pale in it. Behind us, the hallway stretched longer than it should, like the house was breathing and holding its breath. "Hot water probably won't work," Dad said. "But the lights should." He flipped a switch. The bulbs blinked, then steadied. We carried in boxes, sheets, cereal, 2 flashlights, a jar of peanut butter. When we came back in from the car, the air felt colder, as if the house didn't want us warming it up. That night we ate at the little diner in town. The waitress's name tag said AMY. Her cheeks were pink from the heat of the grill, but her eyes kept drifting to the window and the dark line of trees beyond the road. "You folks staying out by the lake?" she asked. "Just up the hill," Dad said. "Fixing up my aunt's place." Amy's mouth pressed into a thin line. "Wind comes down the valley strange at night," she said. "Sounds like it's knocking. Like it wants in." Nora laughed, but not hard. "That's creepy." Amy refilled Dad's coffee. Her hand shook a little. "If you hear the bell," she said, "light a candle and don't open your door." "The bell?" Dad asked. But she was already talking to another table, moving quick, like she didn't want to say more. We drove back as the sky went from blue to slate to a deep, heavy black. The trees crowded the road. The lake below the hill was a wide, dark mirror. Somewhere out there, under the water, my mind pictured a lost main street, a school, a church with a bell tower that no one ever took down. "Hey," Nora said, trying for a bright voice. "Let's watch a movie." We didn't have Wi-Fi, so we found an old DVD player in a closet and watched a scratched superhero film. The sound clicked and popped. I kept hearing something under it, a slow, steady tapping like a finger on glass. Tap, tap, tap. When I muted the movie, the noise stopped. When I pressed play, I heard it again. "Do you hear that?" I asked. "What?" Nora didn't look at me. "Never mind," I said, but the little hairs on my arms stood up. We slept in the same room because the others felt too cold. The walls held our breath like a secret. Dad snored a little on the cot near the window. I watched the ceiling and counted cracks until my eyes started to pull closed. Sometime in the deep part of the night, I woke. The air had gone colder, the kind of cold that slides along your ankles and then up your spine. The room was dark except for a thin line of gray under the door, like fog pressed against it. I listened. Creak. A footstep in the hall. Then another, above us, across the ceiling. Slow, as if something was learning where to put its weight. "Dad," I whispered. His snores had stopped. He lay still, eyes closed, breath slow. I reached out to shake him. A soft whisper brushed my ear, so close it tickled the tiny hairs. "Eli." I flinched and turned. No one was there. The whisper had come from the empty dark behind me. My throat felt tight. "Dad," I said louder. I shook his shoulder. "Dad." He blinked awake. "What is it?" "Someone's in the house." We listened. Stay where I can see you, Dad said. The footprints were gone. The boards looked dry. A smell of blown-out candle drifted on the morning air. I looked down toward the lake. A thin mist moved near the surface like a slow animal. Far out, I thought I saw a line like the ridge of a roof under the water. Then the mist thickened and it was only gray lake again. We spent the morning sweeping and scrubbing. In the living room, I took down the dusty mirror by the stairs to wipe it. When I lifted it, the glass flashed a deep, dark green like lake water. For a second I saw a row of houses, crooked and half underwater, and one tall shape, what was left of a church. A bell tower with no bell. Then my own face blinked back at me, smudged and worried. "Hey," Nora said behind me. "Let's walk down to the shore." We followed the narrow path through maples and birch. The ground was soft. The closer we got, the more we smelled damp wood and old metal, like the inside of a closed toolbox after rain. A long dock reached into the lake. No boats. No people. Only small waves pushing against the posts with a quiet, careful sound. Nora tossed a flat stone. It skittered twice, then sank. "Do you think the village is really down there?" she asked. Dad joined us, wiping his hands on a rag. "The water was low once when I was a kid," he said. "You could see the tops of some roofs." My aunt swore she heard the church bell. Folks say things. Old stories. We were quiet. The wind shifted and turned cold. It came off the lake and slid its hands along our arms. The air felt heavier, like a storm that didn't know how to start. That night, the sky pressed down again. We played cards by the kitchen window. The bulb above us hummed. At 8 o'clock it flickered. At 9 o'clock it flickered again. By 10 o'clock we were all too tired to make jokes about it. "Last hand," Dad said. "Fine," Nora said, yawning. "I'm going to dream about not being here." We washed our cups. The house groaned as the temperature dropped. Somewhere in the walls, something ticked like an old clock remembering time. We carried our flashlights back to the room and pulled the blankets up to our chins. I woke to the sound of water. Not rain. Not a drip. A slow pour like someone tipped a bucket and never stopped. I sat up. The house felt wrong, as if the rooms had shifted closer together. The air was so cold my breath showed. From down the hall came a new sound. One heavy footstep at a time, as if something climbed out of something and found the floor for the first time in a long time. The doorknob to our room turned once. Stopped. Turned back. A whisper slid under the door. "Eli." My name. My stomach dropped, empty as the inside of a bell. The hallway light went out, then blazed, then died. Black. Dad fumbled for the flashlight. It clicked and failed. Nora's small gasp came from the dark. We heard it then, under the door, a slow, wet breath. I stood because I couldn't stand not to. I put my hand on the knob. It was ice. "Don't," Dad said. But the knob turned on its own, firm and steady, and the door opened. Not to the hallway. Not to our house. It opened onto a street drowned in moon-gray water, signs tilted, porches half sunk. Cold mist blew into our faces. And there, in the doorway across the water, an old wooden church stood with a black empty mouth where the bell should be. Something moved in that doorway. Then it stepped forward. The doorway yawned open to the drowned street. Water lapped quietly against tilted porches. Mist slid into the room, cold and damp. The air smelled like old river stones and metal. The church stood in the distance, its empty tower black against the moon. Dad slammed the door shut with a thud. The knob rattled in his hand like it wanted to keep turning. The mirror by the stairs cracked with a sharp pop, as if the glass had felt the same fear. "Stay away from the door," Dad said, voice tight. We crowded in the hallway. Nora whispered, "Did you see it?" Someone was moving in the church. No one answered. The night stretched heavy around us. We sat in the living room, flashlight beams shaking across the walls. Shadows stretched too long, crawling over the ceiling as if they didn't belong to us. Dad tried to keep busy, checking locks, fixing curtains, but his hands trembled. A sound broke the silence. Creak. Then another. Footsteps across the porch. Slow. Patient. "They're back," Nora whispered. The knob didn't move this time. Instead, the window beside it fogged over. 3 long finger marks slid down the glass, slow as tears. "Don't look at it," Dad said, pulling us toward the kitchen. The less extreme moment came quiet but sharp. The lights flickered and all the clocks on the walls reset themselves. Each one clicked until its hands pointed the same way. Straight at 3 a.m. The ticking filled the house like a swarm of bugs. "Why that time?" I asked. Dad didn't answer. We tried to rest in the kitchen, but the smell of damp wood grew stronger. It was like the house itself had soaked in the lake. Dust stirred in the air without wind, as though unseen shapes brushed past us. Then the extreme came without warning. The basement door banged open so hard it cracked the wall. Blackness poured up from the steps, thick as smoke. And with it came a sound, clear, ringing, and impossible. A church bell. 3 deep chimes. Nora clutched my arm so hard her nails dug in. "It's the bell," she whispered. The air pressed cold against our necks. From the basement, something began climbing, each step slow, each creak loud, as if the forgotten village itself was rising into the house. The sound of the bell still hung in the air, heavy as if the walls themselves remembered it. 3 long chimes, echoing up from the basement. Then silence, deep and choking. We stood frozen, watching the black stairwell gape open, the air colder with every second. Step, step. Something was climbing. The wood moaned with each rise, boards straining as if under a weight too old to bear. "Back," Dad whispered. He pulled us toward the hallway, but the shadows stretched forward faster than we could move. At the edge of the stairwell, a shape appeared. A soaked shoe stepped into the kitchen. Then another. Water dripped onto the floor, pooling black in the weak light. A woman's figure rose into view. Her hair hung in strings, dripping. Her dress was torn, clinging to her like seaweed. She lifted her head. Her face was pale, eyes hollow, mouth whispering words that sounded like the scrape of stone. "Leave." We ran into the mist. The ground sloshed and shifted, but somehow our feet found gravel. The road appeared, the lake fading back behind us. Hollow Bend lay ahead, silent and empty. For a moment I thought we had escaped. But then the streetlights blinked on one by one, each bulb humming. Their glow flickered, stretched, and in each light's halo stood a figure, wet, pale, waiting. Dozens of them lined along the road. "Dad," Nora whispered. He pulled us close. His breath shook. "Don't stop." We walked, the figures watching, unmoving. The smell of blown-out candles thickened until I could taste the wax on my tongue. The last house on the road was our aunt's. Its porch light flickered. Inside, through the window, I saw shapes moving. People but not alive. Faces I had never known, mouths moving in silence, turning picture frames toward the wall. "They're everywhere," I said. The church bell rang again, louder than before. The ground shivered. Windows rattled. The forgotten village wasn't just under the lake. It was here, rising, spilling into Hollow Bend, into every house that had tried to forget it. We backed away. Mist swirled thick, swallowing the road, the lights, the figures. Only the bell remained, pounding like a heartbeat. The last thing I felt was cold air brushing my neck and a whisper, soft but sharp, sliding into my ear. "You belong to the village now." And the lights went out.